you know, we still need the stories, whether we read modern novels or not. It's like, we need that connection, whether it's with our elders or with our kids. We pass these stories on as something precious. For me personally, it's probably just the unknown. I've always been drawn more to the unknown and whatever the beyond of normal life. So I would actually go out and look for these. We would go to haunted houses. We would go to haunted areas of the cities, see what was going on. Yeah. Now, whatever that comes from, I don't know, but it kept life interesting.
It was almost like an escape.
Definitely an escape. Family life was not a happy life, so that was an escape. Oh, definitely.
Hey, welcome to the Floaties for Krakens podcast. I am your host, Camille Maria Costa, and it is a brilliant day to be monstrous. Da-da, 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 da. Hi, Cuttles. Welcome back to Season 3, Episode 14 of Floaties for Krakens. Hi. How's everybody doing? What's the weather like where you guys are? Geez, we got a really powerful storm this week. It started with heavy rain and flood warnings to really intense snowfall today. Totally safe here, though, but, I know these weather conditions can be very dangerous, so please make sure to take care of yourselves wherever you may reside right now. Stay warm, and make sure you eat, and make sure you have a cozy item to fall into, like a book or a blanket or a video game. Today's incredibly special guest is a true thinker and one heck of a freaking artist. I mean, not only is his writing profound and powerful, but his way of looking at the world is so necessary in the genre of horror and just writing in general. It is my pleasure to introduce to you C.A. Serna, aka Al. C.A. Serna is a new and upcoming horror author that loves writing scary stories that will make you afraid of the dark. Exposed to horror at a young age, he learned to channel his fears and craft ghastly tales that will surely make your skin crawl. C.A. Serna is currently working on his debut novel, with plans of writing and releasing more short stories in the future. Al, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence on today's episode. It was so much fun getting to nerd out with you about the incredible nature, no pun intended, of animals who star in horror films. I mean, what a great genre, right? You really are a truly brilliant mind, and just thank you so much for writing the stories that so many of us really need to read. The ones that help us feel less monstrous for being ourselves. Just a quick content warning for this episode. In the following interview, there will be mentions and discussions of mental health, anxiety, depression, and bullying in this episode. Do whatever you need to do to feel safe. Alrighty, Cuttlefish. It's time. Let me introduce to you Intro to Philosophy for Jaws. Well, hello, Al, C.A. Serna. Again.
Hello there.
How are you today?
Doing pretty good. It's just noon. I woke up a few hours ago, so can't complain too much.
That's good. So you're having an okay start to your Saturday, you would say?
Absolutely. Made some breakfast,
Ooh,
drank some
yes.
coffee, just kind of hung out a little bit before this interview, just try to collect my thoughts and all that.
This is gonna be so amazing. Like, I am just so first of all, I'm so thrilled to be able to chat with you because I'm really intrigued by everything that you do and all your work, which we will get to, of course. Um, but I always love, especially like other Latinas, and I love talking to you all and picking your brains about monstrosity and about horror in general. So I think
Oh yeah,
this is gonna be so much fun.
I'm excited. It's I love being asked to do stuff like this. So it's just a huge honor to even be on this show and just asked to do an interview. So thank you so much for letting me come here
Oh, we're
and talk
thrilled.
about spooky things.
The best things, the best things.
The best things.
All right. Well, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you? What do you do?
Right. So my name is Serna. Or Al. You can call me Al. Anybody that sees me on the street, you can call me Al.
Love that.
I'm just a dude who likes spooky things, and I like to write stories about them. I am an author, a writer, and I like to write obviously horror stories, scary things to make you go bump in the night, just to make you a little afraid here and there. Um, I what I primarily do is just writing. Really, I have a daytime job, but that's boring. No one wants to know
Ugh,
about
tell me
that.
about it.
Got to pay those bills somehow, though.
You
So,
gotta.
uh-huh. um, and like I said, as a horror author and writer, I just absolutely love things that are horror. I love
Yeah.
watching horror movies. I love listening to like horror podcasts, where they tell stories, or I love reading horror books. I love playing horror video games. But when I'm not trying to scare myself silly, I enjoy a bunch of nerdy things too. I'm a big
Yeah.
fan of like comics, and um,
Ooh.
huge nerd for like Batman and DC.
Yes. Yes.
Really, I really enjoy watching Canadian baseball. Toronto Blue Jays, go Jays!
Ooh, shout out. I love that. That's
It
funny.
is. It is. They are the only Canadian team in the MLB, so I like to root for them.
Yeah.
Hopefully this year will look good. It's not looking too good right now,
And
but we'll
that's
see what
okay. You
happens.
never know. You never know what the winds will change.
Exactly. But yeah, if I'm not really writing or anything, I'm just hanging out at home and watching
Yeah.
TV, watching movies, reading a book, watching sport. I don't know, anything like that. I'm just an
Yeah.
average guy.
An
Just
average guy with a brilliant mind, I feel like, with that.
well, if you say so.
I think so. No, truthfully, I really do. And I don't know, I think this is going to be so fascinating, especially with all of your different loves. Um, and I don't know, focuses and passions in life. Now I know too that you explored philosophy too, in your
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
So,
I got my degree in college from uh, my university here
yeah.
in philosophy. Actually, philosophy and religion, but
Wow.
uh, I focus more on the philosophy side of things, just because. Well, honestly, philosophy was like the only thing that like interested me in school.
Wow. Yeah.
I had this whole notion. I wanted to be a music teacher when I went to college. And
Really?
I Yeah, I did. I love music. Oh, I forgot to mention that music is like a
Oh,
huge passion of mine.
oh my
Um,
God.
I love like music from like the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Basically
Yeah.
your old man rock or whatever. But
Yeah.
I do like some modern stuff here and there, and like
Yeah.
bands from the '90s, and a little bit of grunge. I don't know. If
Yeah.
it's rock, I probably like it. So
Yeah, yeah, that's a fair guess. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Do you play any
Um,
instruments?
I used to, so I do. I play guitar, not
Yeah.
very well anymore. I used to actually play it like a whole. I used to have my own band. I was kind of a. I tried to do the indie music scene for a short stint.
Oh my goodness.
Recorded music, so that involved me kind of learning how to play other instruments. So I used to at one time I used to be able to play guitar, bass, piano, the drum set. What am I missing here? A ukulele, and
Dang.
I did vocals as well. So
That's freaking cool. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
when I was trying to be a music teacher, I was primarily focusing on vocals because
Yeah.
I kind of self-taught myself a lot of things. I kind of knew basic music theory and like enough from like piano
Yeah.
to kind of teach myself.
Yeah.
But I was always kind of self-conscious because I was like, I only know like it's just so much easier to sit in a room and re-record things over and over than
Yeah.
to actually like
Yes.
play them live. So
Yes.
um, that's kind of what I was doing. But you know, like I said, it was just a short thing. But
That's
yeah.
freaking awesome.
Yeah, I wanted to be a music teacher, and I went to classes, and I enjoyed them, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And then I was just kind of lost for a little bit, and
Yeah.
didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was honestly very disappointed because you know all throughout high school I was being told like, oh, when you go to college, it's going to be so great. You're going to be doing what you love. It's going to be so much different than like taking geometry or
Right.
because you have to.
Yeah.
But as I was as I like to say, I wasted my first semester. As I wasted my first semester, maybe even my first year,
Yeah.
I kind of just dove into random things, and I picked philosophy. And my first class, it was geez, what was it called? Uh, Rights and Justice, something in
Mm.
philosophy. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I just walked away from that class, and I couldn't stop thinking about what we learned. And
Yeah.
I was like, this is the first time that I've ever like took something from class and just started applying it, like just started thinking about it outside of the classroom.
Yeah.
And so it made me just so excited, and I just dove headfirst into the the major, and that was
Yeah.
my degree, and never looked back. I I don't really use it now, obviously. I mean, I guess I do one for my writing,
Okay.
but yeah, in a way
Yeah.
I do use it. Yeah. But for a while I kind of felt like it was like, oh man, I really wasted my 4 years. But I think nowadays, and I think it comes in handy. I think I encourage anybody, to take a philosophy course if
Yeah.
you're out there. I love philosophy.
Yeah.
It might be boring. It might be listening to a bunch of old guys and their old guy thoughts in like texts that you can't even really read because
Mm.
they're difficult. But um, I think it's just good to have at least some knowledge behind it because it is very, very important.
Yeah.
Just even learning like ethical philosophy or morals or
Yeah.
um, just taking the different insights and the different ways that we can think about one subject. I think it's just fantastic.
Oh yeah. It's so vital. And I don't know, just to understand other human beings in that way. It's so lovely. And complicated, like you said, complex, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of difficulty and things that are hard to understand. But I think that's so awesome. And I know you keep saying, right, like I wasted these 2 years, or I wasted.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I don't know. Like I totally relate to you on the whole like high school, teachers telling you like college is everything and this is blah blah blah, blah and then it just sucks and you're like, well, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like I don't
yeah,
have any passion, or I don't know what and I think that's exactly what teachers should be saying, that young adulthood is like, whether you're in college or not, right? It should be finding yourself. It should be trying different classes or trying different hobbies or seeing, right, like figuring out for once as yourself like what you like and what you genuinely enjoy, right, as opposed to being
yeah,
in grade school where they tell you like this is what you're supposed to like, or do this for a grade or whatever. And
yeah.
so I don't know, I think you had the perfect path of, I'm gonna try all this stuff.
I
I
think so too.
you
Yeah,
know
yeah. I think it's. I mean, it's just so much easier to look back and just be like, oh, you know, about
yeah,
yourself.
of course.
Um, when in reality, all of it is building your character. It's adding another belt to the or another tool in your belt for the arsenal. Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
never know. That
Mhm.
that crappy job that you work right now, like it sucks, but somehow it's building something better for you. And maybe it's not revealed at the moment, but sometime, maybe in the future, it could be. I don't know.
You're
So
absolutely right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It doesn't feel like it, and it can feel rough and confusing,
yeah.
for sure. And it's allowed to be rough and confusing, but there's something you can take something away from it. Definitely. Yeah. Okay, Al, then how did horror come into play in your life, right? And was it at a young age? Was it later in life? And like how did it appear to you?
Man, I was thinking about this question, and it's just every time I get asked this question, I just it definitely goes back to childhood. Like
Yeah.
I guess I just loved horror. I don't know if I loved horror as a kid, but it definitely fascinated me.
Yeah.
Um, I remember like Halloween as a child and like seeing these scary decorations or walking by a spooky house, and I wanted to engage, but like as a child, like I was just scared, and I don't know, maybe it was just like the fascination of like this feeling or something, but
Yeah.
of like being afraid, but it's just something that like that stuck with me. I remember like being a kid and like walking by like a haunted house and some dude in a Jason mask with a fake chainsaw, you know, or like
Oh
a chainsaw
gosh.
without the actual chain, just like
Oh gosh.
scaring little kid me dressed as like Spider Man probably.
Yeah.
Um, so like I don't know, like I think horror had always just been something, and you know it doesn't help when like your parents don't really don't really like monitor what I was watching, so like I would just watch like movies that were probably I shouldn't have seen. Like,
Absolutely.
I remember the first time I watched Scream. Uh, I was just, I was absolutely. I think man, this is when Netflix was still sending like DVDs.
Oh,
Which
iconic.
yeah, like back in like the early 2000s.
I love it.
And like I'd watch it, I'd rent them without my parents knowing.
Yeah.
They'd come in
Yeah.
the mail. I'd watch them, and they're they're just absolutely like gory
Oh.
or
Mhm.
horrifying, and sometimes I didn't even get through a lot of them because I was like, I gotta stop. I'm too
This is too
scared.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know why. Some movies like in my childhood, some of my favorite movies were movies like Eight Legged Freaks.
Oh
I
my
really like
goodness, right.
I really like spiders for some reason. I think it's
Me
because of
too.
Spider Man, like that Tobey Maguire Spider Man. That scene where like the spider comes down and bites his hand and his
Uh-huh.
DNA changes. God,
Uh-huh.
like it creeped me out, but man, I really love spiders, and so like
Yeah.
I think I had a little bit of sorry, an obsession with them when
Yeah.
I was younger, and that made me, you know, when you obsess over something, you kind of find other media, I guess. So I would watch like Eight
Yes.
Legged Freaks, which is like a movie about like giant spiders taking over a town,
Yeah.
or you know, stuff like that. Really, I don't know, but you know, I also, you know, I am Mexican, Mexicano.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, my parents, uh, they came, they told me a lot of, you know, stories of a lot of horror things. You know,
Uh-huh.
there's a lot of scary mythos and stuff down in Mexico. I don't know
Oh yeah.
what they're doing over there, but it's crazy.
And they
Um,
wanna tell you when you're 3 years old, they wanna say, "Hey,
yeah.
look at this scary thing."
Hey, behave, you know, or El Cucuy's gonna come get you or something, and you're like, what?
Thanks. Thanks,
Yeah.
mom.
Um,
Appreciate it.
yeah, but even like growing up, you know, moving past that, things like we go to like the DVD rental place, you know. Here we called it movie gallery, but it's like a Blockbuster kind of thing.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, and you know, like you walk down the horror aisle, you know, you accidentally walk down it because you're just a little kid, you don't know where you're going,
You never
and like
do.
you look at like the covers, you know, you see like Jason or Chucky or, you know, Freddy, and you're just like, whoa, you know. And
Yeah,
like in my head I was like, I kind of want to know what that's about though, you know.
yeah.
It's just, I think it's just more curiosity. So
Mm,
horror really just was, I guess it was just a part of my life, as much as I like wanted it to or not. I always loved Halloween. When I got like in middle school, high school, I just started watching all the horror movies that like
yeah.
I didn't care with my friends, and they loved it. They didn't like it. We were all scared. I don't know, but like it's just like something I always did, I guess. And even
Oh,
now, like, I watch a movie every once in a while and I'm like, wow, that got me pretty good. And I'll
yeah.
just like sit with it for a while. And I think that's
Yes.
what I love. I think I just love being scared.
Yes.
So,
And I love like the verbiage that you used, this idea of curiosity, right? This
hmm
idea of intrigue, like ever since you were a child, right? There is something, yes, obviously terrifying about like these movie covers or like these monsters I see during Halloween, but for some reason I want to know more, right, about them.
exactly.
And maybe that is
Yeah.
the philosopher in you, Al. I don't know, but there has
Yeah.
always been that, you know?
I guess, yeah, I've definitely always been like a curious person. I just want to know sometimes how things work, why things are the way they are.
Yeah.
Um, Constantly, I'm just asking myself questions like why did they name like this that and you just
Yeah.
Google it and like, oh, they just named after this old guy or something, and then you look up more of like that person's history and like what they've done. You're like, huh, okay, well now I got some useless information.
Yeah. Yeah, but I know it. But I know it
Yeah,
now.
and I know it. Um, and so when it comes to like my writing and stuff, I really love to explore kind of the curiosity about like what is like the human nature when we're faced with just the impossible. I think that's why I really love writing horror, because I could write any other type of fiction, and I could make up any scenario,
Mhm.
whatever. But with the horror aspect, there's this inclination to have it be like the doomsday worst case scenario, even if it's just like being chased around by a guy in a hockey mask.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you just see what people become, and how they face whatever it is. And um it just makes me ask questions like, well, what if it was this way, or
Mhm.
what if this person wasn't like so well put together? What if they were
Right.
worse? What if they became something scarier, worse, more horrifying than the thing that they're running away from?
Yeah.
And I like to think of it as like, how is that a reflection of their character into the story? um
Mhm.
I Because the one thing I really love about writing is I really love characters. I really love um creating these people, putting them in these strange lives. I think the more that I write, the more I'm just writing about people. I'm not writing about like a specific group of people, like middle class workers, or working class heroes here and there. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
writing about this or that. I'm just writing about people. People
Mhm.
do dumb things, people do smart things, people react differently, everybody's different. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of fun to blend that like curiosity and that element of like of horror, with just throwing them into some situation where these average everyday people have to do something. They have
Yeah.
to find a solution somehow. What does that look like?
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I think
I love that. I love that. I feel like that's so exciting. Like that's one of the most exciting aspects of a scary story, right? Is turning
yeah,
people, the reader on its head, right? But also in a sense turning the actual characters on their head, right? And challenging them and challenging their creation and their thought process and their choices. That makes for an intriguing story, right? That's a page turner. That makes you want to keep going, mostly because as you said, we're like that as people, right?
hmm
Like we are very layered and complicated and complex, and half the time we don't even know what's going on in our own brains, right? Like life is
yeah,
crazy.
absolutely.
And I think that's really exciting that you're bringing that perspective, right? And that challenge and that curiosity
Yeah,
into your writing, right? That must be so fun to write and to create um in that way, you know?
it definitely is. I'm very much a creative person. I'm always thinking, for better or for worse. um
Yeah,
it has its pros and cons, but
of course.
I just like, I guess one of the reasons I started writing, because I've been writing stories since I was little.
Yeah.
Even if they were just like 2 pages or something, like
Yeah. Yeah.
little, maybe like a paragraph. I would always write stuff. And like my mom will tell you that like she's, I guess I wrote some story when I was a child about like this evil toy, and it could have been inspired by Chucky. I have no idea, but an evil
Yes.
toy that was just like haunting people. I hope it wasn't like graphic. I hope I wasn't like that messed up as a kid, but uh, I just like, things like that. And I remember like drawing like a picture book of like of like a plot line very similar to Eight-Legged Freaks, where giant
Mm.
spiders take over a town. Like I remember drawing the spiders climbing buildings and like
Yeah.
writing help. It's
Yes.
probably more like a
Yes.
comic if anything, but
That's
it
awesome.
was, even in like middle school. I tried to write stories. In high school, we took taking English. We were always like encouraged to do creative writing. So you
Yes.
know
Yes.
um, one of the first things I ever actually like published was when I was in high school, and it was just a little like novelette, novella. I'm not sure which one's which. Whatever the shorter one of the two is. Um,
Gotcha.
and it's called A Girl Named Molly. I don't think you can find it anywhere, but it was just
Okay.
like a little like romantic, like I don't even know. It was just like a little like drama book, I guess.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and that was something that like I wrote, and I pursued. And I didn't, when you're a high schooler, you don't have an editor, you don't have
Gosh, no.
you know I mean, you only know high school grammar.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm sure it wasn't the best, but I mean, that's just an example of like the creativity that I had. And when I was in college, I had more free time, and I definitely wrote a lot more, but I never actually like pursued anything. And I think it was just because of a little bit of a discouragement from when I was in high school with that story. Just because like I was like, nobody wants to read my story, nobody cares. Like it's just fun for me to do it. But when a couple of years ago, I think like 2023 for sure, um, early fall, I I don't know. I graduated from college from in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Got my degree,
Yeah.
started working, and it wasn't what I expected. I felt like the hopes of like joining the workforce was like not what I expected.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I have a job. I work for a corporation, and it took me a long time to realize that that's not my identity. Wherever I do with my wherever I work isn't what I want to be or what I will be forever. But
Yeah.
and so I just kept coming home after work and doing nothing. And I didn't like that. I didn't like coming home and doing nothing, because
Yeah.
there was no like creativity anymore.
Yeah.
um I felt like things were just getting sucked out of me, and I refused to let that happen. And so one day I just sat down and I just started writing a story, just a horror story that I just came up with like on the spot, and just started writing. And
Yeah.
it all started with a question. you know uh, I was in therapy. I've been in therapy for a long time. Mental
That's
health is very important,
wonderful.
people.
Yes, it
um,
is.
and I'm happy to say that I try to take care of my mental health. And I'm diagnosed ADHD, and that comes with depression, anxiety. So
Yeah.
writing was just what I thought was going to be another way to just help me kind of just get out of my head for a while. And so when I started writing, it was just based on like this question. And I was thinking, telling my therapist, I was like, you know, I bet there's some like therapy sessions that are just absolutely bonkers, and just absolutely bonkers. And he was just like, I'm sure there are, blah blah blah. And so when I left, I was just thinking like, what would be like the worst, the worst case scenario for like a therapist. Um, and so it inspired me to write my short story, A Therapy Session, which is currently available on
Yes, it is.
Amazon and KU. Hoping to push it out in more places, so it's more available. I don't really just want it on Amazon. I'd like it to be everywhere people can
Everywhere.
get it, just
Yeah.
because personally, I really wish I didn't have to charge people to read my book.
No, I
Or
know.
it's not even a book. It's like 9,000 words, but
Still.
um, yeah, I had people asking for it, and I was like, okay, if you really want it, like I'll put it out there.
Yeah.
But I wish like the ebook at least could be free, but it's okay. It is what it is. But
Um,
I started writing a therapy session based on that question, like what would be like the worst thing, and then it started with one thing, and it grew, and then it led to another, and then it led to another, and then I just found myself writing horror, and
yeah.
it felt so natural. It felt so easy, and you know, I just was like, yeah, this has to be a scary story. Like this has to be, I guess I was kind of playing on this whole idea about like, when they say like, oh, he's fighting like demons, he's got
Mhm.
demons, he's fighting internal demons or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I was just thinking like, well, what if somebody comes into therapy and they actually are dealing with a demon that isn't something like, it's not just in their head, it's not just some like result of mental trauma or the hardships that are going on, it's a full-fledged demon. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um and I kind of just like wanted to play with that idea, and that's what a therapy session ended up becoming. um so yeah, it's a good read, I think. People say it's good. I don't know.
I love your journey to the creation of this story. First of all, congratulations for being in therapy. That is
Thank you.
not an easy thing to do, by any
Yeah.
means. Doing it, let alone deciding to do it, right? Like that is a feat in and of itself. And talk about a horror story, right? Like you said, I mean, you're unraveling so much of yourself that you may not know, you may not understand, diagnoses, right, that come and
Hmm.
go, and it's just a lot. And as you said, right, living in the corporate world and literally feeling like your creative soul is just dissipating, right? It's getting
Yeah.
sucked out of you all of the time, and it's so confusing, and you're in this confusing cycle of I need money, right? Like I need to afford like therapy, for example, right? So I got to do this
Hmm.
job, and I got to do this, and I got to do this, and it can be so exhausting.
It
um
can,
you
and
know
I just think like some people, they don't care, and that's fine. Just for me, I just know like I needed more of an outlet than just sitting on my couch watching TV or playing video games or reading a book. I needed something like, not only to just like let me feel like I'm being creative, but a way to like express just the, I don't know, just whatever I'm feeling, and just get it out there. And I think what when I was a kid and I was writing like these scary stories and stuff, I think it was just what do you call it, a way for me to help understand what I didn't understand,
Hmm.
a way to process the feelings of fear or the confusion that I got. Why am I so scared of this thing? Why is this haunting me? Um,
Yeah.
Writing them out was just like kind of just trying to figure that part of me out. And I think in a way I'm still doing that. Even like the other short stories I've written, I feel like it's always just like me trying to answer the questions that I don't think there are a straight answer for,
Hmm.
and I don't know. I think I try to put that element in there, and I think horror is just such a great way to do it too. Just
Oh yeah.
um, it really is like, I think there's just something about the people that we become when we face hardships. There's just something, and that can mean in like so many levels. And I don't know. I'm fascinated with that thought process, I guess.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I get so frustrated sometimes when people that aren't really invested in the horror world, right? They write it off as silly, or they write it off as not important. Like horror is, like who cares? Like whatever. And it's like you don't understand. Like for so many people, right, that see themselves in these movies finally, right, that see
Hmm.
themselves finally personified in the characters, in the monsters, right? Like this is the easiest way for us to process such complex things. It makes it more almost digestible, and I know that sounds probably
Yeah.
crazy to people, right? Like yes, the gory stuff, yes, the crazy things that happen, the possessions, right, the haunted
Exactly. Yeah.
houses, right, like it makes it easier to understand for a very busy brain. you know
Yes.
or maybe
Yes.
for people that, like I relate to you so hard on the whole mental health journey. And like I mental like getting therapy is so complicated, it's expensive, it's not accessible for a lot of people, it's right, like it can be
Yeah.
so many different factors, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, right, your writing through horror, right, is a version of therapy. And I think
Yeah.
that's what it's like for a lot of people, right? Horror movies,
Yeah.
scary stories, podcasts, like you said, even like
Exactly. Yeah.
scary albums, right? Like I don't know, right? Like just I'm thinking of like Iron Maiden or something like that, right? Like I don't
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
it's an escape from, I don't know, just a very very hard world, and just a
Yeah.
very complicated one, and it's just nice to feel like you have some sort of semblance of control in
I
horror.
just, yeah, I definitely think, if you're somebody, I just think don't just I don't know. In my experience, just bottling up things inside your head just doesn't make things better. I'm
Yeah.
not saying like, you have to go to therapy to figure that out. Sometimes you go and you don't figure it out.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
or like you said, people can't afford it, or there's just other things preventing them. Just if it's like writing in a journal, if it's making art, or if it's talking to a friend, whatever it is, I think it's just as important. And I think it's important for people to realize that, about themselves.
That
Especially, I
communication.
mean, yeah, exactly, especially me. I can't go throughout the day without trying to get some ideas out of my head, just because there's
Yeah.
so many of them and it's overwhelming.
Yeah, it's too much. It's way too much. Plus,
Yeah,
it makes for a good story. So,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah, I get that. Okay, so we've been kind of throwing around this term a little bit already in our interview, and I'm curious, Al, what do you think, in your own words, is the definition of a monster?
So I think a monster, I think it's a very loose term. I
Yeah.
think a monster is whatever thing, whatever person, whatever, fill in the blank here. Um, Whatever poses a threat to whoever, whatever, etc. Um, I think it's a very subjective label. I think,
Yeah.
monsters are what we want them to be. Uh,
Mm.
Monsters, I think, could also be a reflection of ourselves in a way that maybe we don't understand. Maybe we won't understand, and that's okay too. But I think like the word monster, or what a monster is just you know us trying to put a label on something that we truly can't understand, that we truly are
Mm.
afraid of, and that we, think of it as a threat, as some type of antagonist to our roles, And in stories, it's perfect for to make it the villain, or the reason that our antagonist or our protagonist has to venture into some action. um but
Yeah.
I because I was thinking about this question, and people, back in when like Cthulhu and mythos, and all of that was like coming out, people were like, that's a monster. But
Yeah.
nowadays people love Cthulhu, they're like, I
Yeah.
love that monster,
Yeah.
so it's like,
Yeah.
I think it's just very much whatever you want it to be, a very subjective term. It could be a
Yeah.
good thing, it could be a bad thing, it could be
Yeah.
like I said, but yeah, I think I'm gonna stick for right now with that answer.
I love again spoken like a true philosopher. I'm not kidding. Like this idea, right, of the fluidity of the term, and that it could be whatever you want it to be, essentially. Which
Yeah.
arguably, right, kind of makes it more terrifying, right? Because
Yes.
it could be a loaded term. It could be a term used to hurt someone, right? Like it could be
Yeah.
used with negative implications. It could be used as something adorable. Like you said, right? Like, oh my gosh, like this character is so badass and tough and can do whatever they want. Like I love that monster
Yeah.
so much, right? Like there are so many different ways you can look at the term. It can change.
Yeah.
It can change with you. It can change by the day. It can change by the minute, right? You could feel differently about the concept of monstrosity day to day. And I
Yeah.
think that that's a wonderful definition. And that makes sense with your writing and the way that you approach horror. I think that's such a lovely way of looking at it.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Yeah, it is.
I
It
agree.
is. And I'm excited. I'm excited. And I can't tell you, like, I am so excited to get into this monster today. I'm just thrilled. Also because technically, I mean, don't get me wrong, we've had kind of like animal hybrids on the show, right? With like different monsters. This guy though is like straight up like when you think animal horror, when you think
Yeah.
this animal monster, this is who you think of. So please, please inform us all, Al. Who is Bruce, aka Jaws?
Um, Bruce is actually the name that like they gave the mechanical shark in production for the movie Jaws, and Jaws is a movie about a killer shark, a man-eating shark, because all sharks are killers, I guess. A
Yeah,
man-eating shark
technically, right?
that that terrorizes, this small community that lives in an island, a small little town, um, lives on an island, and just does what a shark does. It eats. It swims in the
Yeah.
water, and it does its thing,
Yeah.
and that terrifies people for a lot of reasons because they're eating their friends or their children or something, and
Uh-huh.
the whole movie follows our main character, Chief Brody, and Chief Brody, uh, he's the chief of police of Amity. He knows what should be done, but people are pushing him to the side, saying, "Look, we can't close the beaches like just because of one little this
Yeah.
it's a boat accident. It's not
Fine.
a shark. You're overreacting." Um, and it's kind of just seeing the sequences of maybe a little bit of like the town's politics and a little
Mm,
bit of like the morality of people kind of just dictating what ends up happening.
yeah.
um, and more people go missing, more people start dying, and then they're still not closing the beaches, and then Fourth of July
Mm,
comes around, and you know two people that we know of get murked. I think a dog gets murked too as well at some point.
yeah. Yes, that does happen.
But
Mm,
it's Bruce the shark. He's a bigger, a longer shark, bigger than the average shark.
mhm.
Um, One of the characters, Matt Hooper, he's a oceanographer. I think that's what they call him.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think you're right.
he
I
studies sharks. There's like a specific, yeah,
marine
but
biologist. I don't know. It's like a
yeah,
weird.
something,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
something like that. But and he loves sharks. And he comes and he's like, I'm gonna go fight the shark with you guys, blah blah blah. And then another one of our characters is Quint, and he is actually a
Mm,
shark hunter, and
mm,
he's the one that leads them on a voyage to to track the shark and kill it, and he's supposed to be in charge of being the shark killer. That's his
yeah,
job.
yeah.
So they go out there, and all of them, these two shark experts in their own kind of field are just absolutely flabbergasted by what they're dealing with, because not only is this shark um, larger than its
Mhm.
average than the average animal. It is smart. It is doing things that fictional. I don't know, but it's like it's following them. It's
Yeah,
purposely trying to attack them strategically. It is it's
it's
it's more than just
vengeful.
yes, it's
Mhm.
more than just the average animal, like the average shark. So um it becomes more of a threat the more that they learn about it. And I think, to put it in the terms of the show, it starts becoming more of a monster
Yeah.
than than uh than it was let out to be.
Yeah.
Because like I said, Matt Hooper, he's an oceanographer. He loves sharks. That's
Right.
He sees sharks as as these beautiful creatures, but this shark starts becoming something more. It starts becoming terrifying, and
Yeah.
it's starting to be something that he can't really understand anymore. Because in the beginning, he's just talking about, oh, it's a territorial shark. It just wants to hang
Yeah.
around here, and then it just goes out
Sure.
in the middle of the ocean, and then it's just like hunting these three guys. So I don't know, but yeah, that was a really long explanation. It's
That was that was perfect. That was so perfect for, as for individuals that may have never seen it before, right? That's what we want. We want to hear, okay, what is the basis, right? Where does this
yeah.
creature live, right? So, okay, so Al, when were you first introduced to the film?
I really don't remember. So Jaws was one of those movies that I mentioned that was just I watched that movie consistently.
Yeah, yeah,
People
yeah, yeah.
like kids my age were like watching Madagascar or Shrek 2, something like that, over and over, maybe a Disney movie here and there. I
Yeah.
was obsessively rewatching Jaws as a
Yes.
kid, and I just loved it. I do remember. I think it was maybe when I was like 8 or 9, because I think what interested me in it was I was I just stay home alone when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was old enough to do that, and I lived pretty close to our public library. So in the summertime, my parents would go work, my sister would go to daycare, and I would stay home. And you get bored at home, so I just go to
Of
the
course.
library and read. And they had movies, so I check out movies. But um, I would also watch YouTube, and there were these, like, I don't even know, like, I think I want to say it was like an HBO kind of like little thing that they put between movies that they would run, and it was just like these animated bunnies. They're like drawn and everything that would just
Yeah.
like recreate famous scenes from movies,
I
and like
know exactly what you're
yeah,
talking about.
they're
Oh
like
my
30
god.
seconds long or something.
That's crazy. Oh my god, that unlocked something. I have not heard of them in a long time. That's
I would.
crazy.
I wish I should have looked up what they were actually called, but I would watch those all the time. And like, I didn't know. That's also the reason, because they had one for Jaws, they had one for Scream. I remember
Yes,
they had one
yes,
for Clockwork Orange and
everything.
Brokeback Mountain. Yeah, just a bunch of famous movies. Casablanca.
Yeah.
Um, and because of that, I was just like, oh, like I would go through the DVD section at the library and just like, oh, I know that movie. I
Yeah.
saw a thing about it, so I'd rent it. That was actually how I also saw Jaws. That's how I saw Clockwork Orange, which is not a good movie for a kid to watch.
Probably not.
Um, Scream. That was how I like. Oh, Scream. I know that one. So,
Yeah.
um, that one, and Casablanca. That was definitely on there. Gone with the Wind. I'm pretty sure. But
I'm
like, I
sure
just
they
watched all
did.
these movies as a kid because of those little bunnies. And Jaws was one of them. I remember renting it. I remember getting it from the library, and I popped it in, and I was just I was so scared. I remember the
Oh
opening
no.
sequence of like it's just the open water, and it's the
Yeah.
perspective of the shark, and he's
Yeah.
swimming through a coral reef, bum 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 bum,
Yeah.
and the music, John Williams,
Oh,
fantastic. Anything he does is gold. Um,
truly. It's I mean, it's iconic. You hear it, you know exactly
yeah,
what
him
it
and
is.
Danny Elfman. Ugh, I love
Oh,
love their work.
Danny.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, me
Um,
too.
but I watched all of it, and I don't know if it scared me to death, I thought it would be okay because it was PG, so I was like, whatever. But
Sure.
PG in the '70s this was a lot different than the PG now.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
But
no. Nobody was checking those films.
yeah, um, but I think it just like awoke something in me, like because I just became obsessed with it,
Yeah.
and I remember at one point in my life I watched it so many times I was able to do all the lines. I had that
That's
perfect
awesome.
the New Englander accent, the and
Yes.
I have Legos. I play with my Legos as a kid, and I would even
Yes.
try to recreate like the Orca, which is the boat that Quint rides on.
Right.
Actually, hold on. I have um I have the Lego set,
Shut up.
and I wanted to bring
Shut
this
up.
out.
You're joking. Oh
I was
my God.
following this. So here's how much of a Jaws fan I am. I'm on a Facebook group that like follows. I talked to the guy that created this, like that came up with the idea when he first like submitted it for an idea and getting signatures. I was one of the people that signed for it.
Oh
Um,
my
one of
God.
the early people, and it finally came out like God, I don't even know, like years later. I was in high school when that thing was like proposed, I think.
Holy crap.
And it was a dream come true for me because, like I was saying, when I was a kid, I'd play with Legos and I would create movies with my Legos.
Yeah.
I didn't like use a camera or anything. I just in my head, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I recreated the movie Jaws so many times. I created that boat, out of my own spare parts. I didn't look anything like that. I
Yeah.
had my own like I would buy Lego sets just because they had sharks in them, so I could use them in
Oh
my
my
movies.
God.
And then
Yes.
I think that's honestly where a lot of like my fascination with like horror might have came because I would recreate. I would like eventually I would just redo the movie Jaws over and over, but then I would like, oh, let's do something different. Like let's do blah blah
Yeah.
blah, and um,
Yeah.
but like Jaws was just it was just the perfect movie for me as a kid. I don't know why. I loved it so much, and with it, it made me love sharks.
Yeah.
So, I live in Nebraska. We have the Omaha Henry Dorley Zoo. Shout out. Um,
Yes. I've
and
heard so many things about that zoo.
I'm very fortunate to live close and grew up with it. And anytime we went to the aquarium was my favorite part. It's still my
Oh,
favorite part. It's got all my favorite animals:
yes.
penguins,
Yes.
sharks. Um, but when they have like a shark tunnel, and oh my god,
Oh.
I I would just want to sit there and just stare at them all day and just watch them move, and like
Yeah.
I was just absolutely obsessed.
Yeah.
And I God, I don't know, but Jaws has always been a big part of me. It's always been something that stuck with me, and I still watch it every year around the Fourth of July.
Yeah.
It
The
is a
summer
Fourth of July
film.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Exactly.
I watch it every year around the Fourth of July, and I
Yeah.
just every time I watch it, I feel like I gain something new, or
Oh,
I learn
totally.
something different, or it reminds me again of like why I love it so much. It's just
Yeah.
a fantastic film.
Oh my God. Yes. There are just so many wonderful little pockets of
Hmm.
just like fascination in that film and wonder, right? And again, curiosity, right? And I
Yeah.
love that throughout your life, right? It has kind of followed you, right? This story and the
Hmm.
sharks themselves and the horror exploration. And I'm curious too, Al, like I'm just like you. I love animals and I very much got bit by the aquarium bug as a kid, right? I
Oh
love
boy.
animals so much, so much. And I'm interested too, especially because I know you said like Eight-Legged Freaks is such a big part of
Hmm.
big horror movies that you like. And I love that you love horror movies with animals, right? Like with them being the
Yeah.
center. And I want
Yeah.
to know, like putting your thinking aside, I guess, right? Like, why do you think human beings in general, right? Why are there stories created like this where the animal, right, is the bad guy, but like also this animal has almost super abilities, right? Like, oh, that's no
Hmm.
normal shark, that's no normal spider, for example, right? It's bigger, it's scarier, it has sharper teeth, right? It's smarter,
Yeah.
right? Like, why do you think those are so often used as tropes in
I
film?
think it's I think it's because I mean we forget that humans are animals too.
Yeah.
I mean the only difference between us and uh any animal in the kingdom is just we have the ability, we have this kind of level of consciousness that I guess makes us better than them, but than everything
Yes.
else.
Yeah.
Until another animal comes out and is like, humans are the best beings in the world. I think that's when we can say human beings are the best. But as of
Right.
now, we're all in the same playing field.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to like these man versus beast movies or man versus animal, I think it's an element of like we're humans, we're smarter than the average, blah blah blah. We should know how to handle this, and it's
Yeah.
like no, we're seeing you don't understand
Yeah.
the animal enough. You don't understand what you're up against. And
Yeah.
it's a classic trope because it's like a good example is like Starship Troopers, I'm not sure if you ever seen that
Mm.
movie.
I've never seen it, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, so like 30 minutes, the first 30 minutes of the movie is like we're smarter than the bugs, we're gonna kill the bugs, blah blah
Oh,
blah, and then they go on the planet and they all just get decimated, just
immediately.
absolutely. And they're like the bugs are smart, the bugs have plans, they're strategic, they're blah blah blah, and it's like, well, yeah, of course they are, like of course they're sentient beings,
Yeah.
of course they have some, and this is alien bugs, so of course it should have been
Right.
kind of expected that they might have been smart, but
Yeah.
whatever.
One would think.
um, yeah, we just think that because an animal doesn't talk, that we just assume it's stupid, or
Yeah.
that we're better than it. But
Hmm.
I think what the beauty of like movies like Jaws is like you can be a shark expert, you can be a shark hunter, and you can
Yeah.
still be overwhelmed by this animal because unlike like humans, animal we don't know we don't know what an animal is really capable of.
Yeah.
We only know what its natural, what its natural instincts are.
Sure.
Um, a shark swims in the water, natural. It eats things, that's natural.
Yeah.
So, if you think about Jaws, like the shark is just doing what it normally does.
Hmm.
Like it just swims around and it eats.
Yeah.
And, somehow that's, their people's, the people's problem, Um,
Yes.
and what I really love about it is that like the only sensible person, at first was Chief Brody,
Right.
because he was like, we need to close the beaches, we need to shut them down.
Hmm.
There's a wild animal out there,
Hmm.
he's doing the right things, and he's just being like, nah, don't worry about it, and it's just it's nah,
No
it's
big
not a shark
deal.
accident. It's a boat propeller, or just
Like what?
whatever. Yeah. And you learn that like there's some reasons why, because this small little town thrives on the 4th of July.
Mm-hmm.
They rely on those summer dollars, as
Mm-hmm.
the mayor will say. They need summer dollars to stay afloat. Like that is all their income. And I actually
Yeah.
kind of understand that because I grew up in a small town where they have like a yearly festival, and that is like
Yeah.
literally
Hmm.
where a lot
Yes.
of the income comes in.
That's
So
correct. Hmm.
I completely understand. Like I understood where it was coming from, but the mayor and townspeople kind of just didn't think it over until it was too late. Um,
Hmm.
but Brody was the only person who didn't underestimate the shark. And
No.
throughout the whole movie, he never underestimated it.
Mm-mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think that was just, uh, I think that was just a perfect, difference between him and the other people that are on that boat trying to
Yeah.
kill it. Um,
Yeah.
because like once they realize that they can't just kill it or do what they normally would do with it, it
Right.
becomes a bigger deal. It becomes a bigger problem for them to
Right.
solve. So yeah, I think that when we obviously we are smarter than animals. There's no argument there. Animals aren't putting men on the moon, or sharks aren't putting sharks in the moon.
Sure.
um,
Sure. As far as we know.
as far as we know, but I think what the man versus animal trope is, it's just like it's the flaws of the perfect being. we think
Mhm.
we're the perfect being.
Yeah.
And so when we fight something that isn't a perfect being, we are exposing what our real flaw is, and it's overestimating our enemy. So
Yeah. It reveals so many insecurities that we have as human beings, and not having that full control. Like, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean I don't
hmm
have the answers for everything? What do you mean this is the unknown? Right? Something that I didn't venture to believe to be true.
yeah,
And that's what's so fun about these films, right? Because you will always get that person that's like, oh, I just want to kill it, right? Like, I'm just gonna
yeah,
kill this thing and I don't give a crap about whatever, whatever. You're gonna have that person that fights for the animal in a sense, but like also is like, we need to defeat evil and we need to defeat it, right? You're gonna get these
hmm
people that are totally into money, right? And are like, no, like, this is my life's passion, like money, 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 blah blah blah. And that's why I really gravitated towards, when we were talking back and forth, right, about what you wanted to
hmm
explore as your monster, how you said something along the lines of, right, this isn't necessarily a movie about a man eating shark, but it's a movie about fear, right?
yeah. So yeah, I think just over the years, rewatching Jaws over and over, it's literally just everywhere. You know, Brody is a person who lives on an island, and he's afraid of the water. He doesn't go in the ocean. He's afraid of the ocean.
Yeah.
He he doesn't go there. Um, and that's the first our first introduction. Um, I would argue that in the beginning scene we have some college kids, I believe, just sitting around a campfire, smoking cigarettes, drinking beer, singing songs,
Yeah.
it's total 70s vibes, right? And this guy, he's like making eyes with a girl, Christy, and
Yeah.
Christy's, running off somewhere, and he has to go because there's a fear of missing out. He's
Right.
afraid of, like, if he doesn't follow her, he's not gonna get
Mm.
a chance to pursue her or something. So I
Yeah.
would even argue that that's a thing there. Matt Hooper, he talks about how um, when he first got like his boat, his first boat when he was a kid, he watched like this shark just tear it apart and rip it to
Yeah.
shreds, and it terrified him. But at the same time, it interested him, and that's why he studied sharks, and that's why
Mm.
he is obsessed with sharks. Um, you take a look at Quint. Um, Quint was, a veteran. He served in
Right.
World War II,
Hmm.
USS Indianapolis, where they delivered the bomb that would be dropped, on Japan, or one of them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was, a secret mission. If this is all real, like the USS Indianapolis
Hmm.
was so secret that nobody knew that they were out there except for the people in charge of the operation.
Right.
And they get struck by a torpedo from some Japanese submarines, and all of them are kind of just left out in the water. And what happens is sharks start coming and eating these people. And there's this
Mm.
beautiful monologue by Robert Shaw, who
Mm.
plays Quint, and he just goes on about, like, um, talking about when they get hit when they're in the water. They're all wearing life vests, and
Mm.
something I very remember is, like, one of his friends is just, he wakes up and his friend is just bobbing in the water, and he touches him and he flips over and his bottom half is gone. And
Oh man, I forgot about that scene. Yeah.
yeah, and he looks right at Chief Brody, and he's like, I'll never put a life vest on again. You know,
Yeah.
um, in a way, I think it mean now he's a shark hunter. I think in a way he was so afraid, and the
Mm.
only way that he could feel like he's in control again is by being this person that goes out and wrangles sharks.
Sure.
I think that that was his thing of fear. And there's a part in the movie where Quint kind of just knows that he's bested. The boat is starting to sink; it's filling up with water, and he looks at the life vests that are that are hanging. He doesn't
Mm.
put one on, but he gives them to Matt and Brody,
Hmm.
and he doesn't wear one. And
Hmm.
you know, I think that's just another symbolism uh, of the fear. And then the final one, sorry, as you can tell, I'm
No,
very
no.
the
It's
last one,
perfect. Keep going.
the last one, the reason that they don't close the beaches, fear
Yeah.
of not making that money, of
Yeah.
not getting those summer dollars, right?
Sure.
Um, fear fear makes us do a lot of things. We go to a doctor because we're afraid we might be sick with something serious. Um, we I don't know. Fear drives us more than I think we know, um, or can understand. And we may call it something else. We may call it like, oh, blah blah blah, or like, oh, I don't want to miss seeing that person. They're in town. I'm gonna go see them. Like, you're afraid that you're gonna miss that opportunity. You're afraid you're not gonna
Sure.
see them, and it might be a
Sure.
while till you see them again. You know, um, Jaws is a perfect example of a movie about fear because all the decisions that are made are based off of fear of what they don't understand, um, of what is unable. I don't know like I don't know. I just think when you look at it, maybe I'm just not like smart enough to put the words together right now,
Oh
but
no.
I don't know. It's
I
just
know what
like,
you mean.
yeah, exactly. And it's just every time I rewatch it, I just think about like, yeah, like people will do great lengths when they're afraid. They'll do many great deals. they'll
Yeah.
they'll force the town to keep the beaches open, risk the citizens to let them go
Yeah.
swimming, risk his own children going in
Right.
there,
Right.
out of
Yes.
fear, and um, I think the movie points, at the shark at being like the antagonist, um, because the whole town ends up becoming afraid of the shark. So now we got to
Hmm.
do something about it. We got to go and we got to go kill it.
Hmm.
And we see what happens.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So
yeah.
brilliantly stated. Yes, absolutely. I think again, right, that's the most amazing part of spooky stories and horror. Um is seeing what the monster, right, personifies for so many people, right?
Hmm.
The true colors that it reveals about yourself, knowingly or unknowingly, right? Like, what are you actively chasing? What are you trying to defeat in this story? And why can't you? And why haven't you been able to? And maybe for some of you, why will you lose, right? Like, why will you not be able to ever overcome this fear, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's what makes Jaws so brilliant, is like you said, there are so many different perspectives, right? So many different lives, right,
Yeah.
that have been led to up to this point on this beach, right, in this on 4th of
Hmm.
July, right? Like there are so many different lives that have been lived up until this point. And
Exactly.
so many people want so many different things out of this situation, right? And it's so interesting because you have these deep profound human stories like you mentioned,
Hmm.
and it all leads to a giant shark in the ocean, right? Which
Hmm.
is like so brilliantly metaphorical too, I think.
Yeah.
um I don't know, right? Like this idea of this man eating, very intelligent, more, agile in the water than you will probably ever be, right? Because that's its home, things like that.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful exploration, and of course I feel like you can't watch Jaws without having like these kind of throwbacks to the explorations of Moby Dick, right? And like
Hmm.
that kind of journey, right, of the harpoon and everything, and who's really being hunted here, and right, who's
Exactly.
the bad guy, right? Like it's it's so fun. It's such a fun movie. Like no matter how you look at it, it is a
Yeah. Even
fun,
if
good time.
Yeah, even if you're, you just watch it and you're like, that was badass. They blew
Yeah.
up a shark. Like, it's
Oh,
still it's
that's
still
how
a
it ends,
great
by the
movie.
way,
Yeah.
everybody.
Spoiler alert. Yeah. In case you haven't watched it. And then, there's
Crazy.
there's three more movies after that because somehow
Have
that
you seen all of them?
I
Uh,
have, yeah.
yeah,
I
I've
have
only
seen them
ever
all.
seen the one, so
I love Jaws 2. It's not the best movie, but I still love it. Jaws 3D is the least favorite of the series. I think it's by like a lot. It is just Jaws 3 was supposed to be like a 3D film,
ugh,
and they use like CGI, and it
ugh.
is just really bad. There's like a scene where like the shark like breaks through, and it's not even swimming. It's literally just
Just
moving straight right into this glass and breaks open and all this. And kills me every time.
oh,
But I still
jeez.
I still watch it because I love I also really love watching bad horror movies. Like
Oh, come on, it's great.
cheesy, yeah. Like I just become like, Mystery Science Theater 3000. I'm just sitting in the seats, with like Joel or, you know,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
Crow. I can't remember what's the
God,
gumball one. I can't
I
remember.
haven't seen that in so long, Mystery God. But
Yeah,
yes, absolutely.
I
That's
just,
so
I
good.
mean, yeah. Even if it's just me by myself, I'll just be making fun of it. I'm just like, what?
Yeah, come
um,
on, people.
it's so easy to make fun of horror movies as well because, um, like I said, people do stupid things,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. I feel like if you've ever been in a tense situation, it's like it's got to be like a now like decision. It can't be
Sure.
like, well, let me stop and think about this, or like,
Never.
let me have a cup of coffee, let me walk around, and let me think about that. Like, no, it's like we got to do this right now, homie, or
Yeah.
like, or we're gonna die.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
so it is. Yeah, but yeah, and then Jaws: The Revenge. It brings back. So, fun fact: Jaws: The Revenge is actually supposed to like. So, Jaws 3D is not canon, according to the director that made Jaws: The Revenge,
Interesting.
because um, it has a different story and it like kind of just negates whatever happens in Jaws 3D. Like
Yeah.
the storylines are different. Um,
Huh.
so Jaws: The Revenge was actually supposed to be the official Jaws 3, according to the that's what the director wanted. So it brings back Brody's wife, um, and
Oh.
she's like the antagonist or the protagonist, and
Yeah, yeah.
there's this whole thing about like like I don't want to say what do I want to say, like some dark magic, like the shark is come back for revenge, and like it's like personified as another shark. I don't know, it doesn't really go into it very well, but you kind of just roll with it because you're like whatever,
Like,
but
okay. Yeah.
it also takes place in the Bahamas for some reason. Like the shark
That's
followed them
interesting.
all the way around the world because the premise is one of the sons, I can't remember what his name is. He's
Yeah, of
like the new chief of police.
course.
Something happens, he gets eaten by a shark. That's how it starts. And then you know, uh man, what's her name? I can't think of her name. Lauren Gray is the actress. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay.
she's heartbroken. She meets a new guy, and he's like, "Come to the Bahamas." It's Michael Caine. Michael Caine's like, "Come to the Bahamas." So flies her out to the Bahamas, and the shark comes back and is terrorizing this beach in the Bahamas. And
Of course.
um, she's like, "It's here for revenge. It took my son. It took my husband. It's here to get me and my other son." So um, yeah, that's
That's
that's pretty much the premise
incredible.
of it. But yeah, that's a Jaws 2. I think is a pretty good movie. I think it's a good
Yeah.
sequel.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
still has Roy Schneider in it, so
Hell yeah.
that's good. He plays Chief Brody again. He's more confident. And he's kind of a badass, but
Love
he's
it.
also like played as like crazy because like he when he thinks there's a shark back in town, everyone's like, "That's
Still,
old
people
news.
are
That's
like,
that's old news, bro."
you
They
get to
they find
feel
it.
it.
Yeah, it's just like, bro, like, come on,
No.
get over it.
There's no more sharks. That's how it works. No
Yeah,
more.
no more sharks in the water ever. But yeah, so
That's iconic. And not to mention too, right? Like the millions of different animatronics that went into like so many different i- like Universal Studios and things of that nature, right? Like there is a Jaws ride. There is, in the past 10
yeah.
years, there have been so many interesting installations of the movie, right?
Hmm.
Which I think has also added to the fear of, I forget the term. There is a fear of
Oh yeah,
animatronics
sharks.
underwater. You know what
Oh,
I
oh,
mean? Have you heard of that?
I have not. No, I mean I've heard of like the animatronics thing because of like, like
Yeah.
Five Nights at Freddy's or whatever. But
Yes.
underwater, that's a whole new level.
Yeah, like specifically, it's like this idea of like an abandoned theme park, right? That like
Right. Yeah.
had, right? And I think, I don't know, it also plays into thalassophobia, where you have fear of murky water and you don't know what's under you, right? Like
Right. Yes.
it ticks so many boxes of fear, um, just in the films alone. And I don't know, I think you're absolutely right. I think it is such like, even the second one, which was a great sequel, the third one where nobody knew what the hell was going on, right? Like, no matter what,
Yeah,
it's still fun.
it's really just one big advertisement for SeaWorld. Like it is like the oldest son is like a marine biologist at SeaWorld,
Of
or he
course.
works at SeaWorld. I don't remember what he is, but then like there SeaWorld is opening up a whole new uh underwater section to SeaWorld, and
Of
I
course they
guess
are.
they actually like find a great white shark, and it's like I guess like a baby. They try to keep it as the first like great white shark in captivity, and it dies naturally because
They
it's a
can't do
shark.
that.
It's a great white
Yeah.
shark. You can't. There's not enough space, for it to roam,
No.
for it to be satisfied or
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah.
Um, and then it turns out like this big ass shark that they saved is actually the baby, and then here comes Mama trying to get revenge, and she
Oh
just
my
like
god.
yeah. There's a whole lot of other elements of horror in there because there's like people trapped underwater in these tunnels, and they're filling up with water, so it's like a whole. I think the idea of it was interesting, but I don't know. I don't think that there's a reason why like in Back to the Future Part 2 there's like a Jaws like 39 or whatever in like
Yeah. Yeah, that's
40. I
right.
don't even remember. But
Yeah.
Michael J. Fox falls over and is like ah.
God,
So
I freaking forgot. That's so funny.
yeah.
That's great. Okay, well, Al, so why do you think, right, Jaws has been such a close friend, right, to you for so long? Why has it been such a constant in your life? The films, through your Lego set, right? Like just constantly
Yeah.
memorizing the film itself, watching all of these sequels. Like why has Jaws made such an impression?
I just think, I mean, when I was just younger, I just loved it. I just thought it was the best movie of all time. It had
Yeah.
everything. It had, a badass character. Quint. I'm gonna stop this shark.
Yeah.
It had, Brody, who ends up being the real hero and kills the shark.
Mhm.
The big explosion in the end.
Yep.
Um, I guess when I was a kid, like when you're a kid and you're younger, like I guess you just want stories that are like good versus evil, right? And
Mhm.
this is a perfect example of like humans are good, shark bad. So when you
Yep.
kill it,
Yeah.
everybody wins and everybody swims, away in a makeshift raft. um,
Right.
I just thought Jaws was just. I just think Jaws was just like a great story, and I really enjoyed it, and um, I think it opened my eyes to this other world of horror, of like just monsters, taking
Mhm.
over. Like sometimes it's just not even monsters. They're like giant bugs or whatever. It's just a freaking animal in its kingdom. Um,
Yeah.
Lake Placid is another good example. I used to love that as a kid too.
Yeah.
Which is basically like Jaws, but with a crocodile in a lake in Maine. Betty White's in it. That was
That's
fun.
right. Oh my god,
Yeah,
we love Betty White.
I love the scene where they use like one of her cows as like bait, and they just floated along the
Jeez
lake.
Louise. That's
Um,
also quite a crazy trope, now that I think about it, is using animals that we understand, right, as bait
right.
to show just how giant or terrifying these animals actually are.
Yeah.
Jurassic
And
Park also loved to do that too.
oh yeah. I think like I think it's just so different from like watching like Alien or
Yeah.
Predator or something, where it's like man versus beast of some
Mhm.
other origin. When you those kind of movies, you watch them, you're like, we got to understand this thing, and then we're gonna
Yeah.
beat it because we are
Yeah.
humans and we know how to figure things out. When you
Right.
watch like movies where it's like um, oh my gosh, a perfect example is Arachnophobia. You ever
Oh
seen
my
that?
gosh, I've never seen it, but I know arachnophobia.
So
Yeesh.
that's like that's just a movie where it's just like so man, I'm trying to think about the plot. So there's a guy who goes onto some place in like Venezuela, I believe, some
Yeah.
South American country, and they discover a new breed of spider that, you know, super deadly, blah blah blah. It ends up
Yes.
killing this guy, and the spider hitches a ride in his coffin because they got to send the body back to his family. It hitches a ride in his coffin,
Of course.
basically uses him as food for this journey, and then you
Ew.
know they come home, and this spider mates with like a common house spider, and then the spiders that are just like hanging around, you know, your average house spider in your front yard or you know in the bathroom or something
Oh
is
no.
like has the bite of like 10 times stronger than a black widow,
Oh
and
no.
you know people start dying, and like it's like kind of like an epidemic, and
Yeah.
they got to try and figure out you know what's going on here. I think that's like another great example of like a movie where because you know they bring the researcher to come in, the guy that actually discovered the spider, and he's supposed to know everything. You know,
Yeah.
he ends up dying. He ends up
Yeah.
dying because he takes it. You know, he underestimates what this creature is capable of.
Right.
Um, so I like those kinds of movies because it really shows like just the just how flawed humans can be when they
Hmm.
try when they think that they're just like smarter than whatever. Like you know, and like
Yeah.
Predator, like we know that the Predator is smarter than Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like
Yeah, of
he's just out
course.
there, he's doing his thing. Um,
Yes.
you know, it just so happens he happens to fall into a river, get covered in mud, and he's just like, it can't see me. Like
Oh, weird.
that was a lucky guess, man. Like you
Yeah.
got lucky. Um,
God, Predator.
and that becomes like the thing. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, I think
Yeah.
it's like when you look at it, like you know, when you compare them like that, I think those are the two main differences between like those kinds of movies. So I do like Anaconda. That's
Oh
another
my
one.
gosh. Is that the one with J-Lo? No. Is it?
I
I
think
can't remember
so.
now.
We
But
got to
I
fact.
remember being freaked out by Anaconda too.
Yeah, you know, and it's just
God.
it's so easy to pick animals that like that are known for being man eaters, you know, like
Yeah, of
or like
course.
just eat living beings because it's just you know so easy.
Mhm.
I'd like to see the first like Venus flytrap horror movie, you know, where like it's giant and it just starts eating people for some reason. I don't know,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's
but
fascinating.
yeah, it's just things like that, you know, that just like I don't know. I was, you know, I when I studied philosophy, humanity was my main thing. So like
Mm,
how people you know view the world and how they think the world views them. Um,
mm,
so I think it's just so interesting with these kinds of movies because you get to see like that the human nature kind of betray itself, and
mm.
um, you see I don't know like a different side of humanity.
Totally. Totally, absolutely. And it's interesting to see humanity um through the medium of animals. And I mean, like you said, we're all animals, yes. But in
Yeah,
that way, right? Like
yeah,
that's a really interesting duality, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, we're getting down to the last bit of questions, unfortunately. I know we could probably talk about this for a long time,
yeah.
but I'm curious, Al, do you think that Jaws, aka Bruce, is a monster? Why or why not?
I think, ugh, I think in the beginning it isn't. I think it's just a
Yeah.
shark doing what a shark does, right? I think it only becomes a monster, as I mentioned, when, you know, they're out in the water and they're in its natural habitat, and suddenly this animal is now a beast, and suddenly this beast is now a monster
Yeah.
because it's purposely trying to, you know, evade them, it's making them work hard, it's trying to set them up. And
Yeah.
I think as you know kind of taking my definition of a monster, I think at first it wasn't a monster, at first it was a prize, you know, for Quint. it was
Mm,
um it was an opportunity for Matt, um
mm.
and for you know Brody it was just it's a job, like he's the chief of police, he's got to go he's got to be on there no matter
Yeah.
what. But
Yeah.
to him I think Brody knew it was a monster, and that's why he
Mm,
never underestimated it. um
mm.
and you know as the days get longer and the boat starts becoming destroyed and water's leaking and Quint's running out of ideas and Hooper's starting to even panic,
Right.
it starts becoming a monster. And of course, in its all monstrosity, we see it eat Quint. You know, it comes out from
Yeah.
the boat, all like that, and like we see that
Uh-huh.
famous scene where he's like gripping and then he slips
Mm-hmm.
and like
Mm-hmm.
and he just starts
It's intense.
getting eaten.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's when we see Bruce become the monster. Um, I don't think it. I personally, it didn't start out as a monster. That's and then it grew into a monster. That's my answer.
Interesting. What a perfect answer. I love that. Again, right, talking about that fluidity, and also, by the end, right, you learn so much about these people, and you
Hmm.
create a sort of empathy for these individuals, and you walk in their shoes. And I think that's interesting too that you said, right, like, because really we don't get to learn about Bruce's perspective, right? We don't get to
Yeah.
learn what he's thinking about and what he's doing. And I think that's interesting. And you really see the brutality, like that brutal nature of the killings. And I'm fascinated. I think it's really interesting that you said it changes. It just depends on where you're at in the film.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a subjective term. It
Yeah,
could be
yeah,
whatever you want a monster to be.
yeah.
Um, and I think yeah, that's my answer for that. I think it's a good answer.
It's a great answer. It's perfect. All right. Well, why do you think, Al, that monsters, like, why should their stories be told? Why should monsters be explored, right? Why are monsters so important, so necessary?
I think monsters are important and necessary, especially in like literature or movies and things, because um, not only do they set up the perfect antagonist, but they become something that challenges not only like a human or a person. It just it I'm trying to think about this.
Yeah.
It's important because it creates this. It shatters this illusion. That's what I want to say. It shatters this illusion of like what we know about reality. Um,
Mm.
because look, like a monster, people call Jeffrey Dahmer a monster.
Mm.
Frankenstein's monster is named a monster,
Yeah.
but I mean, the dude that built him was out in graveyards, you know, taking body parts off people. Who's the real monster? You know what I mean?
Right.
Um,
Right.
if you think about like the movie Carrie or even the book by
Yeah.
Stephen King, um,
Yeah.
I like to argue, I like to think that Carrie wasn't a monster until the end as well. When
Mm.
they forced her to be, they turned her into a monster.
Right. It wasn't her
She,
choice. Yeah.
yeah, it was what they made her become, because they dropped that pig blood on her and it's over.
Yeah.
She's just like she realizes she's the butt of the joke. She will always
Yeah.
be the butt of the joke.
Yeah.
So she becomes she becomes something more. And monsters, I think, exist to challenge us
Mm.
to maybe even display a version of ourselves that we're not even aware of. See something within us that maybe we're reflecting or projecting onto this thing, this person, this place, whatever it is. um, Monsters are important because they teach us that we shouldn't just always accept what we know. There's always going to
Mm.
be questions, and questions are okay. you know
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't have answers, and that's okay too. But maybe a monster can help answer some of those, or
Yeah.
maybe promote more. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I think that the best answer I have right now is that they just challenge us in
Yeah.
some way. It could be mentally, physically, excuse me, um, metaphysically, whatever.
Yeah.
It all just comes down to how we see it.
Brilliant answer. Yeah. They, ironically enough, help us learn about ourselves,
Yeah.
right? whether we maybe like it or not. That's just kind of what they do. And I don't know. I think, I mean, obviously we're biased, and
Yeah.
I want them at every corner of anything ever that I'm reading or that I'm watching or that I'm listening to, But they're such helpful tools, um, for people, for humans, for people going through a lot. It's just nice to be able to sit down and read a book or watch a film, and get lost, but at the same time learn about you. You know,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. Okay, unfortunately, last question of this whole interview, and arguably my favorite. I always love asking guests this question. It's silly, but is it? It just depends on how you want to take it. So, okay, say you're chilling, Al. Maybe it's a Saturday. Maybe you're by a body of water of your choosing, whatever you choose, and suddenly Jaws appears right in front of you. What would you do? Would you say anything? Would you do anything? How would this
Well,
scenario play out?
if I was in the water, I would immediately get out of the water.
Good. Smart.
um, I respect it too much to, and I know myself. There's no fucking way I could
Yeah.
fight off a shark. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
I'm out of the
Yeah.
water. But if it was like actually the shark from Jaws,
Yeah.
um, I guess I'd first say, "How did you come back from that explosion?" Uh,
How?
uh, and then I'd say, or I I just respect it, the being, because I think one of the things about these like kind of movies is that they don't respect this animal. There's not enough appreciation, maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
or enough like care. There's no respect, and so you know I think I'd want Bruce to know that I respect him and that I won't be in the water and I won't be challenging him.
Yeah.
I know it's just doing its thing. And I think I'd say, thanks for the memories. Thanks for being such a vital part of my life, and walk away and never go to that beach again.
And that's it. That's so beautiful. I feel like you would also, knowing you, would show him your boat too. Like, hey, look at what I made.
Don't break
You
this one, please.
inspired this. Yeah, please. Like, no, I'll make you a separate one. That's beautiful though, and I think it's very telling of your nature to let it know, like, I'm not here to overpower you. I'm not here to challenge you. I'm not here to disrupt, right, your natural day-to-day life. I'm just here with appreciation and just thank you, for what you've done. I think that's such a lovely, very Al response, especially with everything that you've said so far today. That's
Well,
beautiful.
thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so freaking much for being on the show. It was so much fun talking about animals, of course, always, but talking about horror and talking about Jaws. And I think you have such a brilliant mind, and your writing is clever as hell, and it's pushing forward a lot of amazing explorations of horror for people that are afraid of themselves. And I think it's imperative that everybody go. We're gonna link everything in the description. Go read, please. All of the work in the future too. Like, please, it's
Yeah.
great.
Thank you so much for all the kind words and everything. It's hard for me to take compliments, but I appreciate your kind words.
Of
um,
course.
and again for the opportunity to be here, to talk and just ramble on about Jaws and what's ticking in my brain. So it's always fun. So thank you, thank you for
Always.
that opportunity.
It was great. It was a pleasure. This episode of Floaties for Krakens was written and recorded by me, Camille Maria Acosta. A monstrous thank you to C.A. Serna for such a philosophical interview. A big thank you to Michael Kosman for producing a stellar episode, and a huge thank you to Natalie Hedberg for designing such a phenomenal logo. and music for the show is also written and produced by me, with a special appearance by my tata, Toby Acosta. Thank you all so much for tuning in to today's show. It truly means everything. If you have questions or curiosities about the research or media referenced in today's episode, everything will hopefully be in the description box. And you can find us on our website and our socials, links in the description as well. Anyway, thanks again for being here, everyone. And just a reminder, it's okay to be afraid of the monster, but it's also okay to love the heck out of it too. Keep being monstrous and keep shining bright.